cast your mind back, if you will, to the first time you played a Half-Life Deathmatch custom map. If you can't remember one because you didn't play Deathmatch growing up, then it's okay to have a bad childhood. There are resources out there to help you. I can only hope that you can heal from that. But for those kids that did grow up with this game like myself, there are a bunch of maps out there that we will kind of look back on with a certain fondness. And for me, it's a particular type of map that I just really, really love. I probably first came across these maps around 2014. I played Half-Life beforehand, but it was the CD version or the PS2 version. I kind of grew up with both. I dabbled a bit in multiplayer on the PS2, but that was obviously local and with vanilla maps. It wasn't until we got the Steam version of the game in 2014 that I really fell in love with it. And not only did I finally progress past like the first half an hour in single player, I also finally got to experience online deathmatch. And I was completely hooked. I played this shit religiously for like months on end, almost every day, especially during, school holidays and the like. And, I played all the classic maps, Crossfire, Double Cross, Boot Camp, Frenzy. But the coolest thing to me was seeing maps that members of the community had made. I was like kind of residually aware of the modding mapping scene beforehand, but this was the first time I actually experienced community-made content myself in any game ever. I experienced tons of maps. Killboxes, lots of killboxes. Minibox USA was a one I remember playing on a lot. The Mario World map, anyone else remember that one? And like already as a kid being a diehard Mario fan, it just like seeing my two favorite games cross over like this with all the custom textures and sound effects was unbelievably cool. There were a lot of Crossfires. Cross Pony was in particular was quite popular at the time, and I'm not a brony myself, but hey, I don't judge. But out of all the maps and map archetypes out there that I played as a kid, none were as impactful or memorable to me as... Oh, hey there, little buddy. How's it going? What are you up to? Now you put that down, young man. You could have someone's eye out with that. Oh! Oh. Rats maps. The original Rats map, appropriately titled Rats, was created by Chris Spain under the alias of CyberRat. I've heard while researching that the name Rats just comes from his alias and isn't related to the small size of the map at all, which I don't really get, and I also haven't heard from the guy himself, so I'm not sure if I believe it. Like, if anything, I'd guess it's an intentional double meaning, because these maps have you shrunk down to the size of rats, scuttling and squeaking your way to a miserable KD ratio. The original Rats was released in August 1999, less than a year after Half-Life's original release. Another thing I found out while researching is apparently Rats maps are more famous in the Counter-Strike community. That's just kind of what I've heard secondhand. As someone who didn't grow up with CS 1.6 and never really saw anyone else playing Source growing up, I have no idea how much of this is true. I can't really attest to it. I had no idea Rats was also a cornerstone of CS. I just knew it from Half-Life. The README, a staple of a bygone era. I always love reading through these. They're like little time capsules. In the README, it says someone named Swampbug came up with the Rats concept. I tried to find any evidence of a Half-Life, Quake, or even Doom mapper by this name, but my quest for information was fruitless, so I guess we'll just never know more about the originator of the Rats concept. Anyway, let's waste no more time and talk about the map itself. Rats is set in a kitchen. While I do think some of the maps we'll talk about later with custom textures do overall look nicer, there is something pretty charming about seeing the default Half-Life textures blown up to huge sizes and used to try and replicate everyday objects and structures. Like this metal texture, for example, has a pattern that can convincingly be used to represent a tea towel. That's cute. The map has a great amount of little nooks and crannies to hide in, going inside the cupboards and emerging at a higher point to snipe your enemies from. These areas are pretty well detailed. I really like the way they look, and they're pretty easy to remember. They've got pretty memorable layouts. There's also a fair amount of environmental hazards, like the stove, the mouse trap, where you can grab a towel cannon if you time it right, and the sink, where a rocket launcher rests in the plug, but if you're not careful, someone could easily turn on the fan blades, reducing you to chunks of delicious rat meat. There's also this small freezer, which I do really like as a location for combat. It's very cramped and enclosed, so you can grab some goodies in here, but if you're followed, you'll have to engage in some pretty close quarters gunfights, and it can be quite tense. The one downside is that there is a glitch in Half-Life's multiplayer where if you go on like any slippery surfaces, your physics will be stuck like this until you die. Not the map's fault by any means, but I thought I should mention it, it's just kind of annoying. The layout is pretty memorable and solid, the weapon and ammo placements are all good. You can even take a ladder up to the door frame, which is really cool. I honestly don't really have any criticisms of Rats. I think maybe the biggest downside is the floor is quite open, which obviously makes it easier for you to be noticed from above and killed. Obviously, there's a lot of maps out there with this kind of big open middle area. Like, this is kind of a staple of multiplayer deathmatch map design, but I don't know, I still feel like there could have been a few obstacles like books or kitchen utensils or something, I don't know, just kind of strewn across the map. Then again, it was made in 1999, so obviously you couldn't put too much geometry there, or the map would just run like shit. Overall, the original Rats, while not the most exciting map in the world, is just a nice, fun, solid, reliable choice. It's simple, but effective. Moving on, Rats 2 was released on Christmas Eve 1999, this one taking place in a bathroom. Like the last map, there's a lot of objects and environmental things that are incorporated into the gameplay, but I don't know if it comes together as well here. For example, what should be a really cool feature is this toilet. There's a glue-on gun tucked away at the bottom as a nice reward, and you can also step on this to flush the toilet and quickly kill whoever's inside. You won't really need to though, because that person, they'll probably have to kill themselves, if anything, because it's completely inescapable. You just can't get out. Going into the toilet is an instant death sentence. Is this an intentional troll, like, level design thing, or is it a glitch? Spoiler alert, it wasn't fixed in later patches, so I'm guessing it was intentional. I don't know how to feel about this. There's a positively adorable tiny gunboat you can use to get some quick kills if you're fast enough, which is a nice addition, but its range isn't that far, and it shoots just like the MP5, not like the mounted guns you see in Half-Life single player, which deal way more damage. Considering how open and exposed you are to gunfire and how you have to stay completely still, I think it honestly would have been a completely fair trade-off to make the mounted rifle much more powerful than it is here, because as it stands, it's a nice feature, but not the best strategy. The sponge on the floor acting as a trampoline is a great addition. I think the first Rats could have used something like this rather than you having to go inside the cupboards to get to a higher level every time. And this room where you can trap someone and drown them under the bathtub, love that. But yeah, overall Rats 2 is unfortunately a bit of a downgrade. It's still fun, don't get me wrong, but definitely inferior to the original. Oh, what now? I mean, it's the best map ever, of course. In April 2000, Rats XL was released, being a combination of Rats and Rats 2. There's not much to say here, it's just the first two maps sort of Frankenstein together with a few pathways connecting them. No new obstacles and anything, and again, the toilet in the bathroom wasn't even fixed. The only additions are some new textures advertising Chris Spain's website, which also made their way into Rats 3. Rats 3 followed in October 2000, and this map has it all. There's a bunch of custom textures for things like cassette tapes, which is so cool, and you can even turn off an active cassette player to nab a glue-on gun. The long jump module being in this painfully hot mug of coffee is another nice risk-reward thing. The mounted laser gun is awesome to use, way better than the gunboat in Rats 2. In terms of detail and interactivity, this is the best that the Rats series has to offer. You can even shoot the light switch to turn off the big light, which has no gameplay functionality, and it does automatically come back on after a while, which I think is a shame because I really love the way the map looks with the light off. It's really cozy. That's still just an awesome thing that Chris Spain didn't need to include, but he did. All the weapon and ammo placements are solid. There's a wide variety of paths and areas that are all very memorable, but also quite windy and complicated. It's very fun to kind of learn the map. And of course, this is just anecdotal, but from what I could tell when I was playing through all of these maps with my friends to get footage for this video, everyone seemed to enjoy Rats 3 the most. I feel pretty confident in saying this is the best Rats map we ever got. Unfortunately, it was also the last. At least the last original one by Chris Spain. There was no Rats 4, Rats 5 and so on, but in August 2001, to celebrate 2 years since the release of the first map, he did release Rats 2001. This is just a simple update to the first one with new custom textures, some more obstacles on the table and sink to hide behind, and the removal of the slippery physics from the freezer because of that bug I mentioned. I really like the new textures. Again, there was something kind of charming about the use of default textures in the original, but here the room just feels more alive and realistic and homely. I dig it. So officially, in terms of releases, that's where the Rats story ends. However, of course, people loved this concept and started making their own Rats maps, and although they were probably more popular back in the 2000s, as someone who was pretty late to the party, you know, playing Half-Life Deathmatch in the mid to late 2010s, I remember there being entire servers with nothing but Rats maps in rotation. However, today I decided to hop on the Half-Life Deathmatch servers, and it seems as if things have died down a bit. I could only find one server doing a Rats rotation, and the one it happened to be on when I played was not great. There were some cool visual features, but gameplay-wise it was pretty barren, flat, and uninteresting. But I will shout out the ceiling lamp that offers snarks and satchels you can rain down on your opponents. Like I said, there's a lot of other Rats maps out there, but the last one I'll draw attention to in this video is DM_level director by prolific Valve mapper Archie. This is spectacular. Like, just on a visual and detail level, this might be the most impressive thing I've ever seen in the Gold Source engine. It's mind-blowingly good looking. It pretty much is just a modern version of a Rats map in every single way. You can even play the guitar. How cool is that? That is fucking attention to detail right there. And there's a cute cat. So it gets a 10 out of 10 from me, personally. Rats maps, despite not being as popular as they once were due to Half-Life Deathmatch not being as popular as it used to be, hold a special place in many people's hearts, including mine. A lot of my favourite maps in Deathmatch growing up were Rats maps or similar, and this even stretches to other games like Garry's Mod, where one of my favourite maps back in like 2017-ish was Supersize Room. Anyone else remember that one? And if maps like DM Level Director prove anything, it's that the level design trope of tiny players in big rooms is here to stay for many more years. Okay. Okay, I did it. I gushed about Rats, I praised it to oblivion. Now will you let my family go, please?